Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? At the back? I don't know why I can't hear myself. Oh, now it's okay, yeah. Yeah. Before we start, I had a very interesting experience this evening. There's this a conference at NYU in the philosophy department on the hard problem of consciousness. Many of you know what it is, thanks to me. I've been going on and on boring you about it. And today the discussion was the Advaita Vedanta answer to it. And so a professor from Australia, all the way from Australia, Miri Albahari, she came and she gave a talk. Some of us, we went to attend it. Some of you are here who we were there together. They were thinking, who are these strange people? So imagine the top people in philosophy, especially in philosophy of mind, Ned Block and others, these are names to be reckoned with. So they were there, and what we are studying here, that was being presented there in more philosophical language. When the presentation was going on, I was so delighted, the things that she was saying are almost, if you put them in Sanskrit, that's exactly what Shankaracharya was saying 1400 years ago. Exactly the same things. Not only that, it's a tough crowd. Somebody said it's a tough sell. Obviously, you wouldn't expect them to buy it or immediately take it up. But even the questions they asked, and the hard questions they asked, they don't know. Exactly those questions have been asked by the opponents of the Advaitins over the last 1400 years. And there are excellent answers to them. I'm not saying that it's all solved and cut and dried, of course not. But I think there are good answers to that. In fact, afterwards, I was talking to some of the philosophers and saying that you're trying to put me out of a job. I was feeling happy at the same time. I thought maybe I should retire, go back to the Himalayas. The Americans can take care of themselves. Now they are doing it in NYU, so why should we have a Vedanta society for it? Incredible. I was so happy to see this. In fact, what we are going to talk about today is directly related to the discussions that was going on at that time. And as a result, as a sort of consequence of that, I nearly did not make it to the class. I came out of NYU, then I went into Washington Park, and then I came out and I got lost. So I wandered around a little bit here and there, with time running out for the class. And I thought, no need to get anxious because nothing's going to happen unless I get there. So nothing interesting is going to happen unless I reach. But I did manage to come back. I said last time that the verse that we are going to do now, the 16th verse of the second chapter, is a very important verse. And philosophically speaking, at least from the non-dual perspective, it's the heart of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm using my words carefully. Philosophically speaking, from the non-dual perspective. If you're asking for practical advice in spiritual life, there are other verses which will be very useful. For karma yoga, something like karmanyevadhikaraste, that is a central verse. What do? I don't want all this philosophy. How do I lead my life? Krishna will say at the very end, Sarva dharman parityajya, give up all other practices, take refuge in me. So practical spiritual advice, there are other verses. This will seem very theoretical. But this is fundamental to the whole of Advaita Vedanta, this verse. What does this verse say? It can be said easily. The central teaching of Advaita Vedanta. Brahman is real, the world is an appearance, and you are Brahman. Many of you are like, yeah, we know that. You should have been there at the seminar. Just each of these things was taken up and shredded. For a person coming from, say, a materialist, reductionist background, this is a crazy thing to say, an incredible thing to say. But this is the central message of Advaita Vedanta. Sri Ramakrishna, he was asked please teach me spirituality in one sentence. So the person who asked that was wise, because otherwise the whole of the Gospel of Ramakrishna, several hundred pages, 800 pages, 900 pages is the teaching of Ramakrishna. But one sentence, tell me all of spirituality in one sentence. And Sri Ramakrishna looked at that man and he said, Brahman is real, the world is an appearance. Assimilate this truth. And then the writer, no less than Swami Brahmananda, he says, saying this, Sri Ramakrishna kept quiet. He says this also. That means, emphasizes it, that Sri Ramakrishna did not add anything more to it. Brahman is the reality, the world is an appearance. In Bengali he said, Eiti dharana karo. Assimilate this. This is enough for enlightenment. This verse says it. This verse is for the first time. What is going on here? Krishna is talking about the Vedanta theory of the self. Who are we? And he has said that we do not die with the death of the body. Remember the last few verses? But now he is coming to the central teaching. There is one reality which appears as this universe, and you are that reality. Brahma Satyam, Brahman is real. Jagat Mithya, the universe is an appearance. And what about you? Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. You are none other than that absolute reality. I was just thinking, it'll make you smile. The language the professor was using to say exactly this thing. She was saying that Advaita says there is an aperspectival ground of consciousness, and that appears as perspectival subjects. Basically, this is the same thing. This central teaching, that has been set forth for the first time in this verse. And as you can imagine, Shankaracharya, the great teacher of Advaita Vedanta, he is very, very happy with this verse. So today we are going to not only read the verse and the basic meaning behind it, but I'm going to take you into, what I usually do not do, into the original commentary of Shankaracharya on this verse. So we'll do a close reading of his commentary. It's fantastic. And it has tremendous implications for philosophy. The commentary itself is so wonderful. And the great thing is, not only is the truth stated here, teaching given here, it is argued out, and it is also shown how you can directly experience it here and now and forever. So that's what's given here. There's a story which goes, Mahabharata was written by Vyasa, the great poet and sage. And remember the story, all the very nice stories. So Mahabharata, he needed somebody to take it down, to write it down. What do you call it? A stenographer? A scribe? So who does he get? Ganesha. So Ganesha is the scribe, with his elephant head and his enormous processing capacity. He is the scribe. And Vyasa is the person who's composing and giving out poetry as it comes to him, all in the form of poetry. And this greatest of all epics. But Vyasa knew that, Ganesha sets a condition. I will write it down, but you have to keep on composing and telling me the verses. It can't be like you can't take a break. And I'll keep writing. If the moment you stop, I will also stop. And the moment I stop, that's it, I'm done. Vyasa is no less. He said, okay, I agree to your conditions, but I have a condition of my own. And the condition is, the condition is, you must understand what you are writing. You must understand before you write it down. Once you have understood it, write it down. Don't write without understanding. And on purpose, Vyasa would once in a while compose a verse very difficult to understand. So that Ganesha would go, and Vyasa would take a breather, But very soon Ganesha is at it. Got it. And he starts writing. So there are those verses. So this is a story. It's just a story to show that there are difficult verses. They're called knots, granthi. And they are the places where you have to really pay attention because something deep is being said here. Untie it at that point, the whole thing becomes revealed to you. One of those verses is, there are others. You will often find them by their deceptively simple appearance and yet paradoxical statement. Sometimes paradoxical, or here it will seem tautological, stating the absolute obvious. So what does he mean? Let's see. Please repeat after me. Nasato vidyate bhavo, nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah, na bhavo vidyate satah, ubhayorapi drishtvantaha, ubhayorapi drishtvantaha, stvanayo tattvadarshibhi, stvanayo tattvadarshibhi. The unreal never comes into existence, and the real never goes out of existence. Those who are truly wise, they have understood these two. The unreal as the unreal, and the real as the real. Those who are truly wise, they have understood these two. Now, on the face of it, it's strangely what philosophers call tautological, stating the obvious. One is one. A is A. It's tautological. That you're stating the obvious. Real is real, unreal is unreal. That's all. It's wise to know what is real and what is unreal. I have to go a little deeper. What does he want to say here? This is the philosophy of being, the philosophy of existence. Remember, there can be an approach to Brahman from Sat, existence, from Chit, consciousness, and also from Ananda, value or bliss. This is an approach from existence, what is, from isness. Now, one way, I'll give you a simple explanation before we launch into what Shankaracharya does. One explanation is this. One way of explaining it is this. I have often mentioned, you can think of it in this way, things have intrinsic properties and incidental properties. So I have often given you the example of a hot potato which is being boiled. So it's hot, but it's hot only temporarily. It was not hot to begin with, and it will not be hot a little later. It's only when you're serving it hot. Now, it gains heat and loses heat. So the heat in the potato, it's not intrinsic to the potato. It's not always hot. Where did it get its heat from? It's a borrowed heat. It got its heat from the boiling water. And the boiling water similarly is not intrinsically hot. It is hot now, but it was not hot earlier, and it will not be hot later on. That heat does not belong to the water. It borrowed it from the hot pan. Similarly, the pan. It was cold. It borrowed its heat from the fire underneath. But the fire did not borrow its heat from anywhere else. It has its intrinsic heat. Now notice what happens to the fire. As long as it is burning, it is hot. To use a very simple example, it is hot. It does not become hot and does not become cold. As long as the fire is there, it is hot. And it can lend its heat to others. So, a sign of a borrowed property, incidental property, accidental property, is that it comes and goes. The pan was cold, it became hot and lost the heat. The water became hot and lost the heat. The potato, it became hot and lost the heat. But the fire never became hot and lost the heat. Whenever it was there, it was hot. So the sign of an intrinsic property is that it does not come and go. The sign of an incidental property. You know what is meant by incidental? Not essential to the nature of the thing. It's borrowed. It comes and goes. So somebody says, in Manhattan, you don't know who's rich. Because everybody acts rich and spends a lot of money. But some, they own that money, some they're maxing out their credit cards. So only when it's repossessed, the people who have lent you money, they come to take away the stuff. Then you realize, oh, it was borrowed money. It came and went, but it does not belong to that person. Similarly about heat. Now, if this much, you take away this much. If there is something called an intrinsic property, it will be there always. If there is something called an accidental or incidental property, it can come and go. The sign of it being an incidental property is it comes and goes. Now, think of existence. Can existence be a property? That's a different issue altogether, because there's a lot of philosophy. We might not know it. Philosophers would immediately object. But anyway, consider existence. Suppose existence is an incidental property. I'm telling you something which is common sense, but I'm putting it in a little philosophical language. Suppose existence is an incidental property. What would happen to it? If heat is what happened to the heat in the potato or the water or the pan? It comes and goes. If existence were like that, it would come and go. When heat comes and goes, the object becomes hot and cold. If existence comes and goes, what would happen to the object? It would be born, it would die, or it would be created, it would come into being, it would go out of being. Right? Are you with me? If existence is like that, if something gains existence, it's a fancy way of saying it is created or born. If something loses existence, it's a philosophical way of saying that it is destroyed or dead. Which means being born and dying, being created and destroyed, coming into being and disappearing, these are signs that these entities have borrowed existence. Existence does not belong to them. Incidental. Incidental existence, accidental existence, borrowed existence. Existence does not belong to them. And what are we talking about? Just about everything in the world, including here, us, our bodies. Everything is created. Products are created, bodies are created and destroyed. The entire universe, in fact, is created in the Big Bang, and every artifact in it is created and destroyed. Every entity that we know comes into being and is lost. So they do not have existence as an intrinsic property. But suppose there is something called something which has existence as an intrinsic property. Suppose. What would happen to it? What would happen to it? It would be there always. It would never be born, never die. Just as fire, whenever fire is there, fire is hot. In the same way, if existence were an intrinsic property, then that entity would be there always. What he is saying here is, there is such a thing, which has existence as an intrinsic property. And it's you, the real you. And he will show it now. He will demonstrate it. He says it's there, it's an open secret, not exactly in front of our noses, rather we have to say behind our noses, let's say. It's there all the time, an open secret. We just have to see it. He's going to show us now. So that's the whole story behind it. He's going to show us what we call our immortal soul, that we are Brahman. He's going to show that to us. Okay. He said, the unreal has no existence, does not come into existence, and the real never goes out of existence. He uses words asat and sat. Now, think of three kinds of entities. One is in Advaita Vedanta, which has intrinsic existence. That means it never goes out of existence. It always is. You would say that it's good to say such a thing. You have defined it. Is there actually such a thing? Yes, there is. We'll see today. Right today we'll see right here. There is such a thing. And it's been within everybody's experience. Now that thing is, that ultimate reality is Brahman, is Sat. That the name for that is Sat, pure being. Existence, pure being, Sat. So he uses that word Sat. We have also heard Satchidananda. Brahman is defined as existence, consciousness, bliss. So that word is used, Sat. That is the ultimate reality. The opposite of that is the absolutely unreal, which has no existence at all. So like a square circle, for example. Or the classical example they give is Bandhya Putra, the son of a barren woman. By definition, impossible. A square circle, by definition, impossible. So something that does not exist and can never appear. Does not exist, cannot appear. There's no question of it experiencing such a thing. It's a logical impossibility. But in between these two, the absolutely real and the totally unreal, in between these two, there's another category which has borrowed existence. So which comes into existence and disappears. That in-between category in Vedanta is called mithya. Things with borrowed existence, things which are not intrinsically real, they borrow their reality for a time being, mithya. What is the difference between absolutely real and this in-between category? This English translation would be the false, would be an appearance, would be false. How do you distinguish between existence, that which really exists, sat, and this mithya? Sat always exists, never goes out of existence. And the mithya is something which does not exist, yet appears to exist for a time being with borrowed existence. Where does it borrow its existence from? It borrows its existence from Sat. I'll repeat. Mithya, the false, the apparent reality, for a time being it appears before us. The absolutely unreal never appears, as nobody has actually seen a square circle. But we have, this is not crazy, because we have such experiences. A mirage, water in the mirage. You see, it seems like existing there. When you go close, you see it doesn't exist. The classic example of seeing a snake in a rope. So it appears. For a moment you thought you saw it, but when you go close, it's not there. So there is a category of things which appear without existing. And for the time being, they seem to exist, and their existence is borrowed. So that category is called mithya, and Shankaracharya wants to say whatever we experience in the world is in that category. They all have borrowed existence. They do not exist by themselves. They will not exist after some time. And even when, most important, even when they seem to exist, when they seem to appear before you right now, they do not exist by themselves. They are borrowing their existence from Sat, from Brahman. All right. How is this possible? He takes this track. See, this verse is about reality and unreality. Sat, the technical term is mithya. The word he uses for mithya here is asat. Why this has to be said is, those who have studied Vedanta, for them asat does not mean mithya. They talk about absolutely real sat, the false mithya, and the totally unreal asat. So here, asat does not mean totally unreal. This is what I wanted to point out. Here, asat means false. When you say the world is false, Shankaracharya is calling it asat here. But in Vedanta textbooks, asat means square circle, nothing. He does not mean that. So that's what has to be clear. All right. Now we know enough to go into Shankaracharya's explanation. He takes one. Yes.
Is that the same as Maya?
Yes. Yes. All entities which are called mithya are products of Maya. Maya presents Brahman, the Sat, the pure being, as the ever-changing world. Yeah. So therefore, everything that we see here, everything that Shankaracharya calls mithya, is Maya. In fact, it's a common phrase in India. Sab Maya hai. People will repeat it in villages. They have not gone through all this philosophy. But it's just a sort of, catchphrase. Like life is like that. So, Sab Maya, everything is Maya. Literally, it means everything is Maya. But when somebody says that, what he or she means in India is just let it go. It's just like that. Don't start philosophizing with that person. He'll be puzzled. All right. Now the track Shankaracharya takes is, how do you borrow existence? It's cool to talk about borrowing existence but is it possible? What do you mean borrow existence? It happens all the time. Where does it happen? Cause and effect. Material cause and effect. So clay, when you shape it into a pot, you call it a pot, but the pot, which has a name, a distinct form, and a use, name, form, use, nama, rupa, vyavahara, but its entire existence depends on the constituent clay. True or false? Only a few of you seem convinced. A clay pot. Look at this. A wooden lectern. Its entire existence depends upon the wood constituting it. Proof, take away the wood, the lectern would disappear immediately. Right? It has no existence. In fact, when I touch it, what do I say? Touch wood. I don't say touch lectern. I know I'm touching wood only. I can conventionally say I'm touching a lectern or a podium, but I know physically I'm touching what? The material out of which it is made. So, entire existence of this piece of furniture is the wood constituting it, the material cause. The wood is called the material cause. In Sanskrit, upadana karana. And this, using Shankaracharya's terms, we will see now, this podium would be called karyam, effect. Or he says vikara. Vikara means a modification of the material. So the podium is a modification of the constituent wood. Any modification, this is what he wants to say, any modification borrows existence from its constituent material. By the way, I'm enjoying this. But those who are thinking, I wanted some religion, let me go and get me some religion in my life. What have I landed up in? Don't worry, all that will come. Devotion and meditation and ethics, all of those things will come slowly. But this is the central teaching. So what have we got so far? Anything that is a modification, an effect, depends on its material cause for its existence. It borrows, a pot borrows existence from the constituent clay. This furniture borrows its existence from the constituent wood. All right. I'll read out the original Sanskrit. You will like it. I'll translate, of course. Shankaracharya says, Vikaro hisa, any entity you see is an effect, modification. Vikara cha vyabhicharati, effects keep changing. Yatha ghatadi samsthanam chakshusha nirupyamanam mridvyatirekena anupalabdhehe asat. He says, just as a pot, which you can see with your eyes, you can see the form with your eyes, yet there will be nothing left there if you take away the clay. You will not perceive anything at all if the clay is taken away. Other than the clay, you cannot see the pot. Other than the pot, can you see the clay? Yes, you can see it as a lump of clay. If you break the pot, you can see it as a broken pot. The clay you can see. In fact, all you are seeing is clay. Literally, anything that your eyes are contacting is the clay itself. Okay. So what did he say? Just like, he gives an example. Whenever he says yatha, it means just like. Just like the form of a clay seen by the eyes is not seen other than the form of a pot seen by the eyes is not seen other than the clay constituting the pot. Without that, no pot. Similarly, what does he want to say? Similarly, tatha, just like that. So when Shankaracharya is writing in Sanskrit commentaries, if there is a yatha means just like. Look for the tatha. Just like that. There he is going to make his point. Tatha, sarvo vikara karana vyatirekena anupalabdhehe asan. Just like that, every effect, every product, vikara, has no existence, cannot be found, cannot be experienced without their constituent material. This is he says, asan, this is the very definition of falsity. So, what is his conclusion? Being an effect, being unable to exist, being unavailable for experience without its constituent cause, all these products are false. The term he uses, asat. In plural, asan in Sanskrit plural. Also, these ones did not exist before their creation and will not exist after the destruction. Remember, was not hot earlier, will not be hot afterwards. Is it getting hot? Do you need the fan? Some borrowed. He says, Janma pradhvangsabhyam praguddham cha anupalabdhe. Not only are they not existent without their constituent materials, but before their creation also you could not see them. And after their creation also, they are not available for experience. After their destruction. Before destruction was not there, before creation was not there, after destruction will not be there. Even when we say they are there, they are not there without their constituent material. So this name and form, all these things are names and forms. These names and forms are appearances. They are not there before they were created. They will not be there after they are gone. And even when they are there, they are still appearances of their underlying material cause. But you will say, yeah, so the clay is there, right? But the clay is not there apart from its cause. In the Sanskrit, in the old cosmology, how is everything? The clay will not exist apart from the earth element. They talk about sky, fire, space, fire, water, air, earth. So 5 elements. And today you can talk about matter as we understand it. So he says, so the clay does not exist without its cause, and that one does not exist without its cause. The clay is an appearance of its cause, and that cause is an appearance of its underlying cause, and that is an appearance of its underlying cause. So he says, Mrida clay, etc. are clay, and the whole sequence, because the first one cannot be experienced without its underlying reality, underlying cause. And that one cannot be experienced without its underlying substance. And so on, the whole thing becomes an appearance. Then question. So the guy who asked the question is very interesting. Often just the question which comes to, maybe if you're following carefully, the same question will come to your mind. Are you saying everything will disappear then? Tadabhavecha sarvabhava prasanga iti chet. I say, wait, just a minute. If you say that, if you do that, then we are arriving at nothingness. Is everything from A to Z an appearance? That cannot be. The whole thing must be grounded somewhere. You cannot infinitely borrow heat. It must have come from something which is intrinsically hot. Similarly, what is intrinsically existing? Shankaracharya says, no. It's not that everything is false or everything is an appearance. There is a ground reality. We are coming there now. What is the ground reality? He says, every experience you have, in every experience, a pot experience, a table experience, man or woman or sky or earth, whatever experience you have, good and bad and pleasant and unpleasant, in all the experiences, there are 2 components. This is very important. There are 2 components. What are the 2 components? There is the object of experience. It's called Vishaya. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. These are the objects of sense experience. And there is the experience of isness, which we ignore. You see, when you see what are you seeing? You say clock. What are you seeing now? You say book. What are you seeing now? You say hand. What Shankaracharya says, no, in each of these experiences, the 2 components are there. Clock, name and form. Clock is. So clock is one experience, and the other part of it is, it exists. It is. Do you experience it as existing or non-existing? Existing. You see, it goes without saying. What was your experience? Clock is. Book is. Hand is. He says, notice, the objects of experience kept changing. Clock, book, hand. The objects are different. The clock is not a book, the book is not a hand. And the objects come and go. They keep changing. Sometimes you see, sometimes you hear, sometimes you smell, taste, touch. And what you see keeps changing. How many things you have seen since the morning, throughout your lifetimes? How many things you have heard? These keep changing. But everywhere you have the continuous, unchanging experience of isness. Now, this continuous, unchanging experience of isness, very important. This is a doorway to Brahma-jnana. It is continuously available to us. Open it, walk through, Vedanta is over for you, finished right now. Yeah. Don't need anything else. But keep coming to the class anyway. Does not work for you? There are 18 chapters. There's so much Vedanta. I think enough for the next few years. So this doorway, what is the doorway? I'll repeat again. Yours, his, her, our own continuous experience of existence. You'd say, whose existence? Your existence. Could be mine, could be anything that you see. All the time we have an experience of existence. Now next he says, these two experiences we have, experience of the object and the experience of existence. Now when you experience something, the experience is in you. And what you are experiencing is out there. Common sense. I'm experiencing a clock, so I have an experience of a clock in my awareness, in my mind, and there is a clock out there. You see where this is going. So if you are experiencing a clock, and there's a clock there, and you have an experience of a clock. If you're experiencing clock is, that isness experience corresponds to an isness reality. You feel there's a clock, here is a clock. There's a clock in your mind and a clock outside. Clock is that experience of isness in your mind, in yourself, and that corresponds to an isness outside. In every item which you see, he says, there are two experiences, the object itself and isness, and they correspond to a reality. There is an object and there is isness also. Now he says, the object keeps changing. They have borrowed existence. The sense of isness does not change. Everywhere, any experience you have the feeling of being, isness. Then that isness, which is there in every object outside, that unchanging isness is that intrinsic existence we are talking about. That does not borrow existence from anything else. That lends existence to everything. Remember, it may sound abstract, we are actually talking about our living experience every moment of our life. Is analyzing it. That feeling of isness corresponds to a real isness which is there always. That does not come and go. So that which comes and goes, we have already defined it, asat, appearance. That does not come and go, sat, reality. What is sat or reality? That sense of isness. Corresponding to that, there is a reality everywhere, all the time. Let's read. He says, Yad Vishaya Buddhi na vyavicharati tat sat. That entity about which your experience does not change, that is reality. Yad Vishaya Buddhi vyavicharati tad asat iti. The object about which your experience keeps changing, clock, hand, book, that one is an appearance. Why? Because that has borrowed existence. Iti sadasad vibhage buddhi tantre sthite. He says, in this way, in all our experiences, which experience? Every experience you have in life till now and what you will continue to have, you will have a continuous mixed experience of appearance and reality. Appearance and reality. Sad, asat. What is appearance? Names and forms. What is reality? Isness. What do you mean by isness? Track your own experience. That sense of being. Astitva. Amness. Okay. Then he gives an example. Sanghata, sanpata, sanhasti iti evam sarvatra. Pot exists. Cloth exists, elephant exists. In Shankaracharya's context, 1400 years ago, yes. So those are the common, we might say SUV exists. That's the closest we can get to the elephant. So, exists. Then he says, is. Do you notice? Tayo buddheyo ghatadi buddhi vyavicharati tatacha darshitam natu sadbuddhi. And in these experiences, you will see the object keeps changing. The sense of isness does not change. We club them together and we never notice the background isness. Shankaracharya is drawing our attention. You think, can it be that simple? It's not. But in essence, it is pretty simple. This says, Tasmad ghatadi buddhi vishaya asan vyavicharat natu sadbuddhi vishaya abhyavicharat. Therefore, that which corresponds to your changing experience, clock, book, hand, these are appearances. Why? Because they change. What's the problem if they change? If they change, they have borrowed existence. They cannot be real in themselves. But your experience, everybody's continuous experience of isness points to it's not itself the reality, it points to the reality which cannot be expressed. It points to a reality. Why is it that real? Because it does not change. You never see it coming into being, you never see it disappearing. Which one am I talking about? It isness, amness. In Sanskrit, astitva. Satta. Satta in Hindi means power, but here it means existence, being. Now, the person who's objecting is a funny guy. He's got all the good, tough questions. So he says, that's cool, but I've got questions. Number one, ghate vinashte ghatabuddho. Questions you will sometimes never think about also. He's a really smart guy. Ghate vinashte ghatabuddho vyavicharantyam sadbuddhi api vyavicharati iti chet. He says, just a minute. You said part exists, and you're making a distinction between the part, name and form and the existence of it. Okay? Yes. But then when the part is broken, part does not exist, the part experience goes, and I say existence also is gone because part is broken, part is gone now. So your existence is not, what will you say? Part is not. So your is has become is not. What do you say to that? He says, na patadau api sadbuddhi darshanat. He says, no, but you can see it in the cloth, in the elephant, that isness continues. The isness continues. It's only the part, name and form which has disappeared. Then the questioner asks a similar question. He says, just a minute. Sadbuddhivat ghatabuddhi api ghatantare drishyate iti chet. He's funny. He says that, you say existence, the experience of isness continues, because if the part is broken, the cloth is, you are saying. But then I can say that this part is broken, but my experience of part continues in another part. So part is the ultimate reality. Because everywhere there is part. In this part, I cannot say it's a part anymore. But just like you said, cloth is, elephant is, I can say this, the other part is, here is a part, here is a part. So part continues. So part is real. Part is the ultimate reality. That will become a part Vedanta. Shankaracharya says, na padadu adarshanat. Because you cannot see, you don't have the experience of a part in a cloth. You don't have the experience of a part in an elephant. But you have the experience of isness in whatever exists. If you say there is something in which the experience of isness is not there, immediately it will not exist. It is not. You see? Logically speaking. He won't let go. He's like a bulldog. He's got hold of it. He said, just a minute, let me clarify this. Sadbuddhi rapi nashte ghatena drishyate iti chet. You said isness is everywhere. Here's a very important point coming up. You said isness is everywhere. Fine. But when the pot is destroyed, you said cloth exists, elephant exists, but in the destroyed pot, I don't see isness. I can no longer say pot is. That pot is gone. So there I don't see isness. Where is the isness? Where is it's not a superficial question. Suppose somebody asks, suppose everything in the universe is destroyed before the Big Bang or after the dissolution of the universe. In Hinduism, we talk about cycles of existence. So there will be times when the universe does not exist. Pralaya, the cosmic dissolution. Nothing is there. Then where is your existence? In the absence of all things, where is your existence? Just like that, in the absence of one pot, where did your precious existence go? Because we are saying is pot is not. Then he says, important point. Na visheshya bhavat sadbuddhi visheshana vishaya sati visheshya bhave visheshana anupapatto king vishaya syat natu punah sadbuddhe vishaya bhavat. Okay, he says, the only way we can actually experience this isness is in association with a name and form. Why? Because that isness is not really out there. It's you yourself, the pure subject. All those things which you experience, they borrow their isness from your own sense of being. But to experience them, you need an entity outside. Electricity is everywhere. But suppose you say all the bulbs and the fans, they are all taken away. No electrical appliances. Electricity is still there, but how will you know it? Unless something is spinning, something is magnifying sound, something is shining, you will not know the presence of electricity. Similarly, when all entities are destroyed, it's not that existence has gone, but existence has no more instances. It still continues. It still continues. I used an example of light. Once I was talking about this in Nalanda University, in not the old destroyed one. There's a new one there. So they had a seminar on Buddhism and Hinduism and Jainism philosophies of consciousness. So I was saying an analogous thing. Consciousness is appreciated, understood, experienced when you have something to be conscious of. If there is an object, you feel I am experiencing it. If there are no objects to experience, it's not that consciousness has disappeared. It's that there's nothing to experience, so experience of things has stopped. So how to explain that? I was thinking how to illustrate it. And there was conference, PowerPoint projector. So the PowerPoint projector and the light, there's an intense beam of light. Now the funny thing about that beam of light is, you can see the picture on the screen. But the camera is there, or the projector is up there on the ceiling. You know what I'm talking about, you have seen. From there to the screen, an intense light is coming. But if you see there, it doesn't seem to be anything particular. It's only when the speaker, the presenter is walking through that beam, suddenly you see the face shining with white light or something. So what I said is, right now in this spot, there doesn't seem to be light. It's just air. But when I thrust my hand in there, you see my hand shines with light. When I remove my hand, what happens to the light there? It's still there. But it's not shining because an object is not there. When the object is there, the light, it reflects. And you see the object. One Swammi put it very beautifully. What does the light do for the object? It reveals the object. What does the object, we know this, but what does the object do for the light? It manifests an already existing light. Is it true? Right here, you see, I can show a little bit here also. See? If I remove it, there's a light here. When I put my hand, you see how it's shining? Yeah. That light reveals my hand, but my hand manifests an already existing light. Similarly, names and forms manifest an always existing consciousness, always existing existence, being. Without the names and forms, the being is still there, but there's no way of experiencing it. That's what he's saying. Oh. Now, another important question is raised. I'm racing through it sort of. I'm skipping a little bit. So you are saying that existence is the reality and the objects are appearances. To put it in more terms we are used to, existence means Brahman. Brahman is reality and objects means world. The world is false or universe is false. Or in Sanskrit, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Do you see how we have led up to that? You're saying this. The same entity, in that you are saying the names and forms are appearances, the existence alone is real. Real because it is unchanging. The existence alone is real and it manifests these names and forms. It reveals or it gives existence, lends existence to the object. That's what you're saying. But this reality and falsity, they cannot exist together. How can the same thing be true and false at the same time? How can the same thing be true and false at the same time? This mic, is it true or false? True or false? The answer will be depends. You're asking from the point of view of Brahman existence? Yes, it is. You're asking about the mic name and form? Without the existence, it is not. Shankaracharya gives an example. Na idam udakam iti marityadyo anyatara abhave api samanadhikaranya darshanat. Tasmad dehade dvandasya sakaranasya sato na vidyate bhavati. He says, in a mirage, you see two things at the same time. You say, this is water. Now, two things are there. That sense of this and water. Water is not there. The water that you see there is an appearance. But there is something there. Hot air and the desert sand, that's there. So when you say this, it points to a reality. And when you say water, that's wrong. That water is not there. So a reality and an appearance exist together, coexist together. Yeah? A real desert and real water cannot coexist. But a real desert I mean the sandy one, not the cake. I can never get the pronunciations. Desert, yes. You won't know this. It's very funny. There was a very senior Swami in St. Louis. He came to this country in the 1930s. Swami Satprakashanandaji. He came to this country a long time ago. And I went to St. Louis in the Vedanta Society there. The room where that Swami used to stay, they've kept it exactly like that. So they don't disturb it. Guests are allowed to stay there, guest Swamis. So everything is there like the way it was he died in the 1970s, I think. 70s. So everything is the way it was 50 years ago. So I was sort of rummaging around, and in one of the drawers, I saw a little notebook with pencil written in the 1930s. The Swami was trying to learn English, American English in those days. So one page says, with the English word and the Bengali meanings, desert, desert, desert. Three things. In Bengali it's written, Morubhumi, that's the sandy place. And the other one is the sweet thing which you eat. And the other one, and the third one is what you deserve. You get what you deserve. And the whole notebook was painstakingly written with full of words from the dictionary which he was trying to learn. So Shankaracharya says, desert is real. When you say this, there is something real there. But the water is not real. But what was your experience? This is water. One part of it is false, one part of it is correct. You say, book is an appearance, isness is correct. There is an isness. There is an isness running through all our experiences. Then he says, therefore, body, mind, external universe, all of them, they are appearances. Why? They are products. And the product or their modifications, they have no existence apart from their underlying causes. And the underlying causes have no existence apart from their underlying causes, all the way down to isness itself. They are all coming and changing and going, but ultimately down to isness itself. Tathacha atmana abhava avidyamanata na vidyate sarvatra vyabhicharat iti avochama. Therefore have we said that isness is the absence of that isness cannot be conceived of. What is that isness? It is you. It's not really an isness out there. Objects, time, space, all of them. Time is. Space is. Object is. Universe is. Time, space, universe, all are appearances of Maya. That underlying isness is the stage on which the drama takes place, is the screen on which the movie of the universe is playing. And that screen, you are, that thou art. Philosophy, how does it affect me? It is the highest spiritual practice. Highest spiritual practice. I was just reading Swami Vijnananandaji, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. He is saying to people many years after Sri Ramakrishna passed away. He said, Keshab Sen, who was a great social reformer in India in those days, very well known, Brahmo Samaj. So, and he was very well known because he had actually traveled to England and met the Queen in those days. So Sri Ramakrishna says to him, you have crossed the oceans and seen many lands, so many things you have seen. Have you not seen my divine mother who underlies everything in the universe? And Jagod jure achen. My mother who is the reality of the entire universe. Have you not seen her? Do you not have eyes to see her? What does he mean by that? It is this isness awareness, which is the Divine Mother. Swami Vijnanandaji explaining is after that. He says, go on in spiritual life, advance, advance. You will see a vast radiance surrounding you all the time. And you will playfully, like a fish swimming in the ocean, you will playfully, swim in this vast, he calls it a vast radiance. It's here right now. We don't have eyes to see it. What is that vast radiance? It is nothing other than the infinite, unlimited isness awareness. The non-dualist. See, we say our language is meant for practical use. So it's a dualistic language. Table is, book is, clock is. You know what the non-dualist would like to say? Isness tables here. Isness clocks here. Isness books here. It's not as silly as it appears. If you look at the ocean, a child might say, oh, that wave has a lot of water in it. This wave is small one, has less water in it. Which is more logical, to say that waves have water in them, or the water is appearing as waves? Waves do not have water in them. It is the water which appears in various waves. The waves arise in water, play about in water, disappear back into water. They are names and forms and activities in water. The water is absolutely one vastness there. In the same way, like water, can you conceive of existence as an ocean? Now you see with new eyes. Look around you. See existence as an ocean in which all people, all animals, all living and non-living things, including the stars and the planets, they are all waves in this ocean of existence. Ashtavakra says, Mai ananta mahambodau vishwavichi swabhavata udetu vastamayatu name vriddhi navakshati. Now you'll understand. In me, the infinite ocean of existence, the waves of the universe arise and subside. Let the waves arise, I gain nothing thereby. Let the waves subside, I lose nothing thereby. When the waves come up in the ocean, does the ocean increase? No. When the waves subside back into the ocean, has the ocean lost any volume of water? No. In the same way, let birth come, creation come, I have not increased one bit as existence. Let defeat, humiliation, old age, disease, decay and death come and destruction come, I have not lost one bit. I am still same existence ever. Just think about the grandness, and the claim is you can actually experience. Next he says, those who understand the difference between the truth, these two. He says, nirnaya, the conviction, clarity. Sad sadeva, asad asad eva. He says, the reality is real. The asad, the appearance is an appearance. I, the pure existence consciousness, I am real. That one, that I. And the body, mind, including the ego, and the body, and the external universe is an appearance. Appearance of what? Of me. In a sense, all this is an appearance. In a sense, all this is me. If you say this is real, then yes, it is real as you. Because its reality depends on you. It's borrowed from you. But remember, by you, I don't mean this person. I mean that sense of isness awareness, sat chit, which we continuously experience in all our experiences. Then what do you have to do? Tvam api tattvadarshinam drishtim ashritya. He says, oh Arjuna, here Shankara is pitching in to help Krishna. He's saying, Arjuna what should he do? Take up this viewpoint. Take up this viewpoint. Tattvadarshi means a knower of reality. Take up the viewpoint of the knower of reality in your life. Shokam moham cha hitva. Arise above delusion and sorrow. I am asan eva. All the waves that come in your life, say that they are appearances like marichi jalavat, like the water of a mirage. Manasi nischitya titikshasva. With this clarity, with this conviction, he says, go back to the earlier verse. He said, all the afflictions in life, what had he said? What's the solution? He said, put up with them. How will you put up with them? With this clarity and conviction. This is how you live your life and do whatever has to be done. It gives you enormous freedom. Nothing here. I was thinking, That professor, the lady in the university NYU, she said this. This is very poetic Sanskrit, but what she said was, the entire universe of objective and objective entities is contained in one inclusive, within the boundaries of one inclusive, a-perspective ground of consciousness. But so this is what he's saying. I'll end with one monk I know in the Rishikesh. Haridwar. So there was a great teacher. He was teaching about Vedanta, and he didn't know much about modern science. So somebody had shown him an X-ray, and he said, "I saw this, oh monks." We were all sitting around. "Oh monks, maine dekha, I saw this. A light which goes through the skin and the blood and the flesh and to the bones, to the very bones." He says, exactly like this. I love the way he would bring all these examples back to Vedanta. Exactly like this should be your vision. Like supervision, Superman. Not to see through to the bones. He says, see through to reality. He says, Mahatma ki drishti aisi honi chahiye. The vision, the perspective. It has nothing to do with the physical vision. Your perspective, the perspective of a monk, of a practitioner of non-dualism should be like this. Keep your attention on the unchanging reality. And enjoy the movie, the ever-changing waves of the ocean which you are. You are the ocean. Why are you so worried about little waves? Rise above the little. Nothing can affect you. It can affect the body. But you are not the body. The body is a wave in you. Instead of thinking, I am a tiny spark of consciousness in an uncaring, vast universe of eternal time and space. All the time and all the space and all the conscious and non-conscious entities are little waves and bubbles in you. This is not megalomania. It says it's actually an open secret. Vivekananda called it an open secret, continuously available to us. It requires a change in perspective. Today, towards the end, after the end of the discussion in the university, one problem the philosophers had, the lady who presented it did a good job. But see, he gave examples of Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta and others. In that mystic experience, they have experienced the oneness. Now, for a moment you say that, what happens is the evidence then becomes locked up in the hands of a few people. The question will be, why should I believe you? Somebody was repeatedly asking, this is an enormous claim you are making. Where is the evidence for this? There is another approach which Shankaracharya uses here. I'm not talking about mystical experience. You will have that also. Take a completely analytical point of view. Take a completely analytical point of view. That will reveal an ever-revealed reality here. The non-dualists in the Himalayas, they say, Praptasya prapti nivrittasya nivritti. What will Vedanta do to you? What will you get from Vedanta? What you have already got. It gives you what you have already got. And what does Vedanta remove? What problem does it solve? It solves a problem that was never there. Praptasya prapti nivrittasya nivritti. Yeah.
Swammi,
yes.
is not a cause of this universe.
How did you go there? No, you're right. You're right. That's the ultimate answer. But how did you? I'm interested in knowing why.
Because of the part and the part is just an effect. So there has to be a cause.
Yes. So the clay is the material cause of the pot. In the same way, Brahman is said to be the material cause of this universe. But you said Brahman is not the cause of the universe. Why did you say that?
The part is also an appearance.
You're right. If it's an appearance, see, if something, a seed germinated and it made a beautiful plant, so you can say the seed is the cause of the plant, correct? It's the material which became the plant. But you say the seed made a beautiful plant. Where is it? No, in my dreams. If you say the plant is in my dreams, then you will say that seed is not the cause of the plant in your dreams, because that plant does not exist. So if the universe is an appearance, then the question will arise, what is Brahman a cause of? What did it produce? What did it create? Nothing. Brahman alone remains. There is no universe that was created. There's no universe that was created. But it is experienced. That's the joy of it. When King Kong comes and climbs the Empire State Building, I saw the movie when I was a kid. Now, all of that happened. You had the experience. But actually King Kong did not come into the movie hall. No. In the same way, what happens here is an experience created by your Maya. It's your glory within you, the existence consciousness. So is Brahman materially a cause of the universe? Is it a creator God? No. It is the universe. And it is you. Yes.
So maybe just following with this question, if there is no creator,
Yes.
there is no time also, right?
From Brahman's perspective.
Yes.
Right. No time, no space. In fact, when you say eternal, Brahman is eternal, you've already accepted time. And then you say, but actually even time, look at the logic. Will you say time is, the moment you say time is, then the isness becomes real and it's appearing as time. Space, if you say space is, space depends on isness. Because without is, space will disappear. You might say, people might say, it's a word game you are playing. No, because continuously the reference is to your experience. Look at your own experience. How can you say it's a word game? So this Brahman you are, that is the central teaching that Krishna is giving Arjuna. Now there are many, many issues which will come up here. Yes, so that will be discussed. 18 chapters are there, plenty of time. Down to, yes, we'll end with that question.
God, Brahman created the universe. In the Bible also they say about Adam and Eve, he created Adam and Eve, and then that's how the world came.
Yes.
So then, then he did create the universe.
So you step down one step, then Brahman, this very Brahman becomes what is called in Vedanta the Saguna Brahman, which is the creator of the universe, which through the power of Maya doesn't create exactly, projects the universe, if you want an explanation. But Vedanta will tell you that's a story. If you want a story, yes. What Vedanta tells you is, all the things in the dream, which you see in your dream, the people and the plants and the places, were they really created by you or imagined by you? They were imagined by you. So you're not really their creator in that sense. No things were created. They're projected by you in your own mind. All the time when you see those places, when you meet those people in your dreams, they are none other than you. Similarly, this entire universe which we are experiencing is none other than Brahman. If it was other than Brahman, if it's at all possible, then you could say Brahman created something apart from itself. But it did not. And it cannot be other than Brahman. Can you tell me why? If Brahman is, then other than Brahman will become? Is not, yes. You're good Vedantins now. Other than is not. Apart from is not. Then will not exist. It will not exist at all. Yes.
But why would Brahman take such form? Why would
The question of why. Why? This has come up again and again. Why? There are many, many answers. I'll give you a few. Take your pick. We'll end with that. It's a very profound question. In fact, today in the university, one place it got stuck is, so that you are saying there's one, again the same thing, a perspectival ground of consciousness. Yes. And from that the many have come. How? Why? And she was struggling to answer that. And it's unfair to expect somebody to answer that immediately, what we have been struggling over for thousands of years. But you see, what's the beauty is this. All the questions, the difficult ones also, are exactly the right questions to ask. That means, for the first time in New York University, with the top philosophers of the world, they are going through a question-answer process on the track where thousands of years ago, Advaitins, Tibetan Buddhists, the dualists who are opponents of the Advaitins, they are having the exact same debate with the exact same questions, only in Sanskrit. So, your question is why? I'll give you a few candidates, see if you like it. One is the theory of the standard answer is given, karma. Why does this world exist? Because of your own karma, our collective karma. Where did this collective karma come from? Our past lives. Yeah, but where did that world come from, the past life world? Because of the earlier life. You will say, then where did the first life come from? And you will say, no, there is no such first life, it's beginningless. You will say it's a cop-out. You're beginningless, how can there be beginningless? there is an answer to that also. But let's switch to the next answer. The next answer is, it is Brahman's play because it can. Alan Watts, I've told you the story. Alan Watts said, God alone existed. It's a children's story, but I really like it. It's a very profound story. He said, God alone existed, eternity to eternity, but eternity is a pretty long time. So God got bored. He's lonely. Now God wanted a buddy to play with. But how can God get somebody to play with? Because God is alone. There's only God. There's nothing else other than God. And there cannot be. Remember, is will become is not. So how does God get somebody to play around with? Who will be God's buddy? Then God being God, this is Alan Watts' explanation, God is awfully clever because he's God. So he's got an idea. God pretended to be not God. Now there are two, God and God pretending to be not God. So the game started. What's the game? There's God pretending to be not God. What's that? People and trees and plants and universe, stars and planets. And the problem became, because God is God, he is awfully good at what he does. So when he pretended to be not God, he forgot that he was God. And then what was a play became a nightmare. And now God who is pretending to be not God and forgotten that he is God, suffering so much, is trying to search for God. And this is the story of the universe. Beautiful story, really. All of Vedanta packed into that. Candidate, would you like this story? And you say, yeah, it's poetic, but playing, God plays. Why would God want to play? All right. Now we are getting serious. One more option. The last but one is what standard answer in Advaita. Maya. So God has this power which allows God, or let's not use the word God, Brahman, isness, has this power which allows isness to appear as many forms. Clock is, table is, sky is, earth is, water is, man is, mind is, thoughts. So isness appears in all these forms because isness has that power to project itself. It's like a blank screen which has the power to project movies upon itself. Consciousness can have that power. That is the nature of consciousness. Now, what is, the question will arise, then is it non-dual? How can that power, does that power exist? Or does it not? If it does not exist, you can't have the universe. If it exists, then there are two things which are isness and power is. But that power has no existence apart from isness. So it's non-dual. It's like, they call it like the fire and the burning power of fire. That's an explanation. You might say, even then why? Infinite existence could. The physicist Lawrence Krauss said, this is a children's question. They keep asking why, till the last solution is go to bed. But Vedanta does not say go to bed. It says the question itself is wrong. If you ask why Maya, the question itself is wrong. Why is the question wrong? It took me a long time to understand. Shankaracharya, Vivekananda, they all dismiss it. Question is wrong. Why is the question wrong? I can ask why. Instead of saying go to bed, there is an answer to that. Look at what you are asking. This is about causation. You are asking about cause. You are asking why Maya. But what is Maya? According to Vedanta, Maya is time, space, causation. Now suppose you ask, it's wrong because you cannot ask why. Why, when you ask why, what kind of answer will satisfy you? A cause. Why did it rain? Why is the grass wet? Because it rained. Why did it rain? Because of the clouds, and so on. So when you say why Maya, you need a because answer. Why did Brahman become the universe or even appear as the universe? Why is Brahman even playing? If you're asking that, what answer will satisfy you? A because answer. But a because answer works only after causation. If you ask a question about causation itself, why causation? It's not a logically correct question. Why? For example, time, space and causation. It's like asking, what is there outside space? Outside and inside are space terms. Once you have accepted space, then you can ask outside or inside. But space itself, what is outside? There's no way of... outside means some space is there outside, but no. Time, if you ask what was there before time. But before and after are time words. They make sense only when time has started. So only when causation has started, downwards, after Maya, then the question is why this thing happened, why that thing happened. But why Maya happened? Why did Brahman appear as the universe? The question itself is logically wrong. Am I making logical sense? If not psychological sense, but logical sense. It makes logical sense. Do you see? I'll make psychological sense also. Swami Trigunaatitananda, he gave a beautiful answer. The same question was asked. He said, his answer is more direct, it's a really deeply spiritual answer. He said, on this side of Maya, on this side of enlightenment, we have the question and there is no answer possible. On the other side, they have the answer, but no question is there. Notice, enlightened people, anybody you consider to be enlightened, Ramana Maharshi or Nisargadatta, the lady was speaking about them, or Ramakrishna or Vivekananda, one thing have you ever noticed? Do they ever say, okay, I'm enlightened now, I'm a knower of Brahman, I'm free and all of that, but one problem still remains. Why this thing has happened? They seem to have, the question seems to have disappeared for them. We'll end here. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. In fact, the answer that lady gave, the professor, was the final answer, which I did not mention. I'll just quickly mention it to you. Gaudapada in Mandukya Karika, he considers all these answers, why Brahman is appearing as the universe. And he rejects them all, including the Maya. And then finally he comes to Devasya Esha Swabhavayam. This is the very nature of the Shining One. There is no doubt that isness is there. That's the reality. And there's no doubt we are experiencing this variety. So that isness is shining forth in all these ways. It's the very nature of that. This is not what she said. She said in this way. She said, this question comes because we think of that reality as an emptiness. But in all the scriptures, it is thought of as a plenum, as an infinity. As everything is there in an unexpressed state, and then it gets expressed. You're asking, why does the sun shine? It's the very nature. The process of fusion produces heat and light. Same about Brahman. It's the very nature of Brahman to shine forth in all these ways. Okay.